Afternoon, everyone. So this is a relatively short and very informal overview, just to extend what I spoke about a little bit last week. I had a number of emails in with questions about the setup and what am I using, where did I get it, etc. So I said to Patricia that I'd be happy just to do a few minutes today or to do a session on it. I didn't realize that would drag us all in here for a school forum, but there you go. So I am going to share my screen with you. The core of what I'm using, or what we're using, is a lovely piece of software called OBS, or the Open Broadcast System. You can download it for Windows, Linux, Mac. It's fully enabled on all of those platforms, so you should be sorted. And I only discovered this at Christmas. It's not like I've known this for a long time, but it's a beautiful piece of software that I think a few people in the school are already using. So apologies if you already knew this a long time ago before I even found out about it. It's really cool in that what it allows you to do is a lot of video and source compositing. So in other words, you can take webcam elements, you can take presentations, you can take windows that you have open and layer them all together, and from it do 2 or 3 things. So the 2 or 3 things of interest are: you can record, which can be handy. It's a cheap and easy to use approach to doing screen recordings. It's not specifically made to do screen recording, but it works just fine to do screen recording. You can also, and this would suit the more outgoing people in the group, you can, and what this thing was created for were people who want to do live blogs and that sort of thing. So it's got all the plumbing needed. If you want to stream directly to Twitch, to YouTube, whatever the platform is, it has lots of API interfaces for you to take the recording of whatever it is in front of you and have it streaming directly into any of those services. Not a big one for us, but you know, just it's handy to know if people do ever want to do any live presentations where there's a lot more people coming in than they think that Brightspace or even Teams would be able to handle. The third thing it could do, and this for me was one of the killer features, is you can set it up to enable a virtual webcam. So in other words, its own output will be put out onto your system as a virtual webcam that you can then use within other applications. Now, there are some catches on that. The virtual webcam feature is a plugin that you have to install afterwards, but if you just search for OBS virtual camera, you'll just find the plugin page. You click a button, it's all sorted out. There's a few catches connected to that. That's one, you need to install it yourself. Number 2, if you're using Linux, it only works well in Ubuntu 20.04. If you're still running 16.04 or 18.04, it's not going to work out so well for you unless you do a lot of hacking. The third catch is, for Mac users, that Apple have tried to lock down a lot of the camera interfaces for security reasons and other bits and pieces. And signed applications like Microsoft Office can no longer pick up on the virtual cams. So MS Teams won't pick up on the virtual cam, but Bongo will. Now you can get around it if you really want, and you can disable the signing of MS Teams, and that will allow it to see the virtual cam again. But I haven't had a use case where that's needed. I use Bongo for classes, etc., and it can see the virtual cam just fine. So what I thought I might do is, first of all, talk a little bit about the equipment setup I have, and then guide people a little bit through just some of the major places to look at on the OBS software and just where important things are done. So in terms of the hardware setup I'm using, and this was a popular question during the week, this was not something I got from the school. This was a whiteboard I found on Amazon over Christmas. The distributor in the UK will still deliver to Ireland. They have VAT issues semi-sorted out. And it's just a cheap and dirty whiteboard. The retail on it was about €100, but importantly, it's a nice flip one and it fits in my room because, like many of us, I'm working in an attic, so I couldn't have it up too high. For the green screen bit, and this was also something I got several questions on, this was just a standard green fabric elements that you can get on Amazon. I've given Patricia the links to the two bits that I bought. If you're shopping around, Peter would be able to tell you way more about this than me, but make sure to get cotton rather than cheaper fabric like polyester or something, because you need to be able to iron this. You need to be able to iron out the wrinkles so it's relatively flat and smooth. So I found a tip online just suggesting to make sure to get cotton. It's only like €2 more expensive, but it makes all the difference. The cotton itself, I think I bought a huge sheet of it for like €10 or something like that. And then I just got out the scissors and cut it down to size. In terms of how I fasten it up here, I went and I had a look initially at things like, you know, the Velcro strips and various types of fasteners. But the problem was everything would stick to the whiteboard thing itself, but sticking to the fabric was very challenging. So unless I wanted to get out a sewing needle, which is not something I want to do given my eyesight, I'll stab myself. I just went with blue tack. Blue tack worked out perfectly. So the blue tack will adhere, will stick to the metal edges and also the fabric. That's been up there about a month. I've been swinging it back and forth, no issues. Now, to be clear, I do have about 20 different blue tack positionings, and it won't last months or anything like that, but it lasts long enough that it does the trick. Another important point, particularly if you want to do the whole thing of drawing on the board, is that you will want a decent webcam. In my experience, an awful lot of webcams on the laptops, even the cheaper Mac laptops, they're not necessarily great. So what you want is something that's a high definition camera, but that also has a good image, because sometimes what you'll find is you'll have something that's rated as a high definition webcam, but yet the lenses on it are rubbish, or just, you know, the actual image quality is pretty bad, even if it is in theory high resolution. So I did splash out a little bit on the webcam out of my own pocket, but it has made a huge difference in terms of just how well people can see. So I read around and I decided to splash out a bit. It's one of the higher end Logitechs, but it is fantastic. And importantly, it has a really good mic on it. So that's what I'm using now for the meeting, for example, and I've had no complaints about the sound or anything like that.
Sounds very good.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back to the software itself, I'll just sort of move myself around. So this is the interface for OBS, and what we have is basically on the left hand side we have the bits that are concerned with compositing the video together. What are the bits that we need? What do we want to see? And on the right hand side we have the actual output and a few commands for what we can do with the output. So if I had a streaming destination set up like Twitch or YouTube or whatever, one of the Periscope, I could just click here and start streaming to it if I wanted, but I can equally just start recording, and it under the hood it has a nice H.264 codec built into it, and it does a decent job at nice compressed videos. I haven't played around with it a lot because it's not my big use case. The important bit for us is on the left hand side, this panel here. So this is where we add in different elements that we're interested in. I'm just going to remove the webcam there and step through it for you. So when you start off, it might be blank, and it's really easy. You're basically saying something like, I want to add in, and I've got a video capture device, okay, and it's asked me to name it. And I can do a drop-down menu and look for my camera. So I'm using a Logitech camera, and that should be it, the Logitech Stream Cam. And I can set different resolutions, etc. But I just use all the defaults, it's fine. That's relatively easy so far. What I want to do next though with that is add in my green screen. And to do that, if we right click on that camera and go into filters, there's a huge number of different filters and manipulations you can do with the image data here. I'm not going to play around with, I'm not going through them with you. I'll focus on the one that's important for us here today. If you go down into the effect filters, open that up. There's a load of different things that can be used. And there's one here, chroma key. So that's green screen manipulation. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't have to be green. It can be any color you want, but I did stick with the default of green. And as you know, I've got green fabric there. So that's me pretty much sorted with that. So that's now added in. Now we want something to overlay. If I turn this around, you should now see on the right-hand side, it sort of gives me a view of my settings before I started doing the current manipulations. And on the right-hand side, you can see, you know, what changes have been made. So all of a sudden my green screen is now matted out, so I can put something in to take its place. So to add something in, again, I'm just using my plus button. And the easiest thing to use here is not display capture, but window capture. So you see down here at the end, window capture. So I click in window capture, same sort of thing, it's just asking me for a name. And then again, that same sort of interface, I have a drop down and I can go through and select any of these windows if I want. I've already started a presentation there, just PowerPoint, logistic regression, we'll use that. Press OK. Now, here's the important bit. You can resize and manipulate these elements. So what I usually do on before a lecture where I'm going to use this is I just take the elements and I get things set up for the size that I'm working with today. So I'm literally just sort of shrinking that down. It's a bit fiddly, but once you've done it, it's the same setup, because I generally always keep the screen in the same place and the camera in the same place. I just decided to start from scratch for you today, so you got the idea. So I'm able to drop that in place. And importantly, I just need to alter the order on these. That's it. Now it's a bit messy there. Normally I'll tweak it a little bit to really make sure that it's clear, but what you're seeing there on my desktop is what the virtual camera would produce if I switched it on. And you can see it's truly now integrated with it, because if I twist this around, it disappears completely. So you can have this set up, and then in the lecture as you might need it, if you have something of interest that you want to display, you turn it around and it's there ready to go. So, and that's basically all you need, is you're introducing the camera, adding a chroma key filter to it, then sourcing whatever video that you want to use. That's the gist of it. Once you're happy with your setup, you go up to the tools, start virtual camera, and the virtual camera is now running. And that can be picked up by other things, not MS Teams, so I can't live show it to you as such. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I know there's a lot sort of covered there and people would need to sit down and play around with it. But again, it's OBS. It is easy. It's not designed for coders. It's designed for people who do things like screencasting of playing games and stuff like that. So it is relatively easy to use. And I've used things like Premiere and all these Adobe things. They're way more complicated than this. This is relatively simple and straightforward. So with that in mind, I'll throw it back for any further questions.